Hello, everyone. Welcome to Raising Vibrations. You're with Simon today. And in today's video, we're going to be looking at Venus in Virgo. And this was for the 3rd of October, 4th of October, up until the 28th of October 2020. This is when Venus will be moving through the constellation or through the sign Virgo from a tropical zodiac perspective. And so we're going to be jumping into an astrology forecast. We're going to be looking at aspects that I think would be very useful for you to pay attention to and the dates that will be taking place along the road. So I am super excited to be doing these kind of little Venus through the signs videos. I think they've got a lot of value in it. And for me personally, at least, if you want to join our Patreon community, you're looking for connection with other people, and you want to learn more about the type of interactions that we're having over there, I will put that in the description and the links below. Okay. All right. Venus in evolutionary astrology reflects the archetype of our inner relationship to ourself. And so this is perceived through the symbol of Taurus and the way that we interrelate with other people, Libra. Okay, so Venus in evolutionary astrology is co-ruled by the archetype of Taurus and the archetype of Libra. How do we, in a social situation, express our values, right? And those values come from an internal relationship that we have to ourselves. So there's a dynamic reflection there. So when we have Venus moving through a sign, what we're experiencing is a development around the inner relationship that we have to ourselves, and then by natural default, how that gets expressed when you are in a social situation. Now, one of the things that's really fascinating to me is we, within the current climate, have been so influenced and impressed upon by information from all different perspectives that if you really pay attention to what types of thinking and what types of conversations you generally have with people, I wonder how much of that conversation includes just you, as opposed to the influence of your perspective based on articles that you've read, or the experience that you may have had with a fallout with a friend that has to do with a social kind of situation that is influenced by social media, as an example, or the world view. I wonder how many of us really actually just talk about things that are just happening in our day, and we're just going around just being what it means to be you. Now, obviously, this is a question that is incredibly diverse, because on one spectrum, you're going to have people that go, yeah, I see that. And then other people like, no, don't really have that. Obviously, right? The intention is not about accuracy. It's about the attention, or the pulling of your attention into yourself, and to observe how much of your thinking space is influenced by your sensory perception of what is occurring for you in the moment relative to your own world, as opposed to linking up with the collective information and how that's being downloaded into your field of awareness that then influences your sense of perception. So how much of your actual sense of perception is actually you versus attachments to ideologies, perspectives, and truths? It's kind of a contemplation with the South Node in Sagittarius at the moment. So Venus, within the context of this conversation, is through the constellation Virgo, or the sign Virgo, we're coming into our senses. Okay, so my observation, interpretation, connection to the sign Virgo, I like to see it from this perspective. I like to see Virgo as the archetype that is trying to integrate Pisces. So Pisces will inevitably have a lot of chaos around it, and Virgo will show up and say, hey, let's organize, right? So as an archetype, Virgo likes to adjust things to make more space for there to be efficiency and for there to be clarity, right? Then within the context of Venus in Virgo, the polarity of Venus in Virgo will look like integrating more Pisces. So how are we coming more into allowing ourselves more meaning within our lives, right? As opposed to the very linear archetype of Virgo. How are we looking at our lives through the lens of what are our senses telling us about the moment, you know? So a practice that I generally tend to do with Venus and Virgo, I have this placement as well, is when we get out of the mind and we come into the body, you know, what is our environment really telling us about the current situation in our life? How are we being very sensitive and very in touch with the very stimuli that is in our environment, and how we're paying attention to that, and how is that influencing us? How is that influencing our cognition to see reality, and so on? So that's my introduction to Venus and Virgo and what we could do for this month in terms of coming into the body. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is switch to the astrology chart, and let's look at some transits that are going to be taking place for this experience. Okay. So first things first, Solar Flyer identifies Venus entering Virgo on the 3rd, 4th of October, 2020. And as you can see, the first thing that's really, really clear here is Venus makes a trine to the South Node, right? So Venus trining the South Node. It has been trining the South Node for a few days, so it's nothing new. But with the trine to Uranus and with the trine to Mars over there, as in South Node trining Mars, Venus trining Mars, Venus trining the South Node, we have a fire trine of energy, or at least with when Venus was in Leo. Now that it shifts into the Earth sign, it creates a kind of experience where we're taking inspiration, meaning, and getting really excited about things, right? Things hotting up, to something more along the lines of, so how do we create a container in which this excitement or this new sense of passion can be delivered in a very concrete, very efficient, and very detailed way, right? So we want to ground the energy with Venus coming into Virgo off the back of the fire trine. All right. So that's what that energy evolutionary potential is held in there. So when you look at any trine in evolutionary astrology, you have to discern whether it is a disseminating trine or a first quarter trine, right? So with Venus over here, this is a first quarter trine, as in Venus trining Uranus and Venus trining Mars. If we go to our little aspects page over here, you can see Venus and Mars are in the trine. And then if we go to Uranus, Venus is also in the trine there as well. Okay. It's trine signalized by the triangle, blue. All right. So Venus's trines to Mars and Uranus indicate that we are beginning to integrate. So a trine is, the first quarter trine is about consistent integration of something that feels right for you. Okay. Consistent integration of something that feels correct, that feels purposeful, that feels meaningful. So the reflection of the first quarter trine that is showing up for me is I'm really, really digging and enjoying creating content that feels very aligned and valuable to myself and how that lands with people. And I want to be consistent with it, right? So that's why you'll see with Venus entering Virgo, Venus entering Libra, Venus entering Scorpio, I'll continue to do those aspects, just like with Mercury going retrograde. We're doing these little small videos that really helps you see the astrology, and then adding to other videos where we'll talk more about emotional healing. So that's me, right? And that would be a reflection of consistently integrating something that feels purposeful and meaningful. So what is it in your life that feels meaningful and purposeful? How can you align values that syncs with that, with action? So what type of action can you take, or what type of adjustment in your life can you make that gives more attention to something that's purposeful and meaningful in your life? And then do that consistently. Okay. So that's the tone, my interpretation of Venus entering Virgo and connecting to the trines here. All right. So Venus doesn't actually make any other aspects, majorly to other planets. I mean, it has a sextile, fair enough, to Scorpio, Mercury and Scorpio. It's like a kind of energy that can create an adjustment around really getting in touch with your core values. So I would say that sextile between Mercury and Venus contributes to a commitment type thinking. Okay, what can you osmose with would be the theme associated with this transit. Okay, so let's move on to the next aspect, which I think is deeply significant, and this is on the 7th and 8th of October. So as you can see, 7th and 8th of October, and Venus is now 5 degrees. It's now out of the trine with Mars, as you can see, no blue line, but now it's still making the trine to Uranus, and this is going to be a trine that will be on for quite some time. As you can see, it's not even reached the climax point yet. Okay, so Venus in conjuncting Chiron. Okay, and this quincunx between Venus and Chiron is called the gibbous phase in conjunct. All right, there are two in conjuncts in evolutionary astrology: a full phase in conjunct and a gibbous phase in conjunct. The gibbous phase in conjunct reflects a necessary adjustment in one's, now with Venus over here, in one's own attachments to their sense of values or needs. So what this aspect symbolizes is that as you give more attention to something that is meaningful, real, and important to you, you will notice that certain events and circumstances will show up in your life in which you will feel the old crashing up against the new. My word for you from the 7th and 8th is self-belief. You've got to believe in yourself. You've got to trust that what you're doing has purpose and meaning, even though it's not fully realized yet. And so the Chiron in conjunct the Venus aspect is healing the wound around allowing yourself to believe in yourself and to become more competent, to contribute more to what you are discovering about yourself. So if you want to study astrology and you've done a reading for somebody and you've come up against a kind of crisis or a block and you don't know what to do and that deflates you, right? This aspect is saying, hey, let's adjust the thinking from giving up to, oh, here's an opportunity for me to investigate and learn about something, add value to what it is that I'm already studying, and then move on. Okay? So Venus will then give us this energy of healing ourselves by committing to, this is the first trine, to something, and then adjusting in accordance with what is instilling more self-belief and recognizing patterns of, oh, I'm not good enough, and clearing that out. Okay. All right. So let's move on to the next aspect. Okay. And this is going to be for the 10th of October. The 10th of October, Venus will make a trine to Jupiter. It's just entering the orb of Jupiter's trine. As you can see there, 8 degrees, and that's 18. So we generally use about a 10-degree orb for this. And then, of course, it's now going to be hitting the exact trine to Uranus. So we know that this is a first quarter phase trine, and this is a disseminating trine. And so the reason why it is disseminating versus first quarter is because Uranus is the slowest moving planet. Venus is only 120 degrees, or in this case, it's 119 degrees, and 119. 119, and this one over here is sitting at 230. So 230, a 240 degree aspect is the trine. So 230, as in Venus will go all the way around over here and hit that. Whereas here, it's only done that. So to Venus, to Uranus, it's a small aspect, whereas Jupiter is obviously the slowest moving planet around the solar system in relation to Venus. And so that will indicate more time. So the disseminating trine between Jupiter and Venus is integration, right? So we are shifting our attention from just being solely on ourselves to how do I now collaborate with and disseminate myself into the collective structure. So this is a very social orientated energy pattern. And you can see that at the time that Jupiter starts to make a trine to Venus, the sun's going to now start making its opposition to Mars, and it's going to be making the squares to Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter. So immediately what we're going to experience here is the clash between the old and the new. So the 10th of October being the moment where we begin to experience the clash between the old and the new. And what you want to do is take the wisdom from the first trine, which was the 5th, and consistency and integration, and then apply self-belief while you are shifting your priorities and moving in alignment with what is really authentic and true for you. Okay? So that's what that means. Now, obviously, as the time goes on, the 11th, it's going to become more intense, and eventually we will have the sun in opposition to Mars and squaring Pluto, and the 14th will be really, really a big deal. But on the 14th, right, we have Venus and Neptune in opposition with each other, and then you got the moon right on top of that Venus. Now, the moon's a mirror. So what the moon's doing is it's mirroring the aspect between Venus opposition to Neptune, and it is mirroring the Venus trine Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn aspect. Okay? So what we have with this on the 14th, right, with the sun in opposition to Mars, is a kind of period where we are shifting from, well, it's a continuation of shifting our sense of inner self to match the frequency of the outer self. So if you had to create a broad horizon, a broad like perspective, we are shifting from becoming less identified with not something that is not authentic and more aligned with something that is authentic. And so this energy on the 14th is illuminating to us the peak experiences in which these shifts will take place. Okay? So Neptune opposed Venus is on one side the dissolving of old and the decaying of old values, and that will show up as conflict in your life, and the alignment with something that is new in your life, and that will show up as being very socially aware of what it is that is important to you and what it is that is not. So we're socially aligning with our values. We're learning to disseminate what values we want and what truths we want in our lives, and then aligning with people like that. And then we are allowing ourselves to move away from what it is that doesn't align with our authentic truth. Okay. And again, these energies are very small within the context of the astrological pattern or theme that's taking place, right? So this, what we're looking at here is this little dot, but you have Pluto cycle through Capricorn, you have Neptune cycle through Pisces, you have Uranus cycle through Taurus, and you have Saturn cycle through. So you get the picture here. So the agenda, as it were, if you want to look at it that way, is that we are moving more towards individuated states of being. And so in order to do that, you need to align with the right type of frequency. So this is a progression of alignment with the right type of frequency. Okay. All right. So let's move on. And then we have on the 17th, we're going to look at Venus square the nodes. This is a really, really big thing. And what I like about this that's kind of cool is Venus 17th, right? Or should I say the October the 17th, and then Venus at 17 degrees, and it starts to make this squaring of the nodes. Okay, oppose Neptune, squaring of the nodes, and we have an entire T square taking place in the mutable cross. Now, mutability is about change, not in the same way that cardinal energy is about initiating change. Mutable energy is about mutation and the energy of changing the patterns. All right, there's a subtle difference in the way that this process takes place, but this is about the shift. So while everything has been like I said, let's go back. Let's go to the beginning of Venus entering Virgo. We're moving in a new direction. We're being consistent about it. We're adjusting our insecurities and we're becoming more self-confident. We are shifting our priorities and aligning with philosophies and truths that really resonate with us. We are then integrating those philosophies and truths in a social sphere. We're learning to, through conflict, recognize what works for us and what doesn't, where we can integrate or not. And then when we reach the 17th of October, Venus squares the nodes and, of course, hits the Neptune opposition. And this will be about 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, right? Where we'll feel uncertain. We'll try to say something and then we'll be like, oh, I don't have the confidence to say it. I don't feel like I'm really secure in this process. And so then you'll move backwards. And we're going to wobble. We're going to move from side to side. When we have planets square the nodes, the intention here is to allow consistency of a direction. So consistency of a new direction for us will look like the reinforcement of what the trine between Venus and Uranus was telling us, which was becoming more efficient and self-consistent in our ways of being, believing in yourself. All right. And that's what the message here is. So Venus is the North Node is the resolution for Venus. It's about identifying and communicating your truth. And Neptune is the resolution with the South Node. And so this represents or reflects the process of dissolving and decaying the past philosophies or truths that no longer work for you anymore. Okay? All right. So it's about consistent action in committing to something that is authentic for you. And you can see here that the moon then enters Scorpio and initiates commitment in a big way. As you can see there, Moon, Mercury conjunction, Venus square the nodes, and the ruler of the North Node is Mercury. The moon will reflect the Mercury energy, initiating the awareness of the resolution. And the resolution is opening up your perspective, becoming more conscious and available, and very inquiring into your own reality, while at the same time being very open and curious about the other experience, other people, and learning to experience what is correct for you or not. Okay. So you're learning to understand diversity, but you're also learning to internalize what is yours and what is not. Okay. So that's a big transit. I would watch out for the 17th in terms, or observe the nature of the energy at the time. And then on the 19th, we'll have Venus quincunx Chiron. Right, so Venus sitting here, and that makes, sorry, not quincunx Chiron, quincunx Mars. And the only difference between the inconjunct between Venus and Chiron and Venus and Mars is that when Chiron inconjunct happened, we were healing our internal self. When Mars and Venus quincunx each other, this will be about aligning with those insights and wisdoms that you gained when you had Chiron in conjunct Venus. So self-belief, self-consistency, stronger belief in yourself, and adjustment, and being able to learn more about what it is that you're stepping into. Okay, so allowing yourself to experience visually the new journey, right? Stepping into the unknown in that sense. Okay, so alignment with values. Right? This is an inconjunct. It's the gibbous phase inconjunct, so it acts as a Virgo energy. And so it's just doubling down on the need for looking at what multiple directions you're exposed to, and then asking yourself, what is relevant for me or not? That's, again, the introduction to this video. It's like, I'm taking in lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of things, but am I actually digesting it? Am I actually, allowing it to sit into my field and say, yes, this is something I align with or not? Or am I just taking in information and then just kind of amplifying it back, because that's what we do. We kind of parrot it out, right? So are we really, really, really coming into the source code of our own being and allowing this energy to transmute us internally to lead to an individuation process, to lead to a state of differentiation? Who are you in that sense? Okay. So then we will move over to the next date. This is the 25th of October. And what's really significant at this point is Venus sitting at 26 degrees. It makes an inconjunct to Uranus. Sorry, not Uranus, but the moon. But really, it's making these beautiful trines to Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter. And that's the reward, guys. That's the reward. When Venus makes the trine to Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, all of the things that you've been doing in the month of October will come to a point of graduation. And that's cool. That's really, really cool. It's a graduating moment. So the Council of Elders, which is Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter, sitting there at the top saying, you must do this, or, this is the reward, or this is where you put in time and energy. They're going to do that. We're going to experience a reward. And what you will notice is consistent strength and alignment with something that's truly authentic to yourself. And that's the reward I see for the 25th of October, one day before my birthday. So I'm really excited about that nice little kick-ass conjunction trine that will be taking place there. Okay. All right. Then we will then move over to the 28th of October, and that is when Venus enters Libra. And at that point in time, you'll be watching another video from me talking about what Venus through Libra means. And in the meantime, you can be contemplating the shift in direction. I mean, come on, look at this. Moon, Chiron, Aries, all sitting there, and Venus enters it, makes an opposition and says, all right, it's time to individuate. You've given your reward, go out into the world and discover yourself anew, says the energy. All right. Okay, peeps, I have one more quote to contemplate while we are doing this, and then, yeah. Okay. So I have recently found some interest in reading Aristotle's work. And I'm sure some of you have invested time and energy into learning and discovering what he has to say. I did not get the opportunity growing up to be exposed to these types of thinkers. And so I'm really, really excited and interested in diving into their material and really, picking out some things that could be supportive or useful with my own personal life, and what maybe I could share with some of you that are also in the same boat as me, And I found this really, really fascinating. Okay, now I've kind of put it in a way that the way I want to express it, and this ties in with the Venus. Okay, for the things we have to learn before we cannot do them. Okay, so this is what I think. For the things we have to learn before we can do them, we learn by doing them. And I like this because, this is about Venus and Virgo, Earth sign energy. We've got a lot of Earth trines coming on. Practical wisdom. Aristotle, as it says over here, practical wisdom as he conceived it cannot be acquired solely by learning general rules. And why I like this is because Virgo itself likes to be very intellectual in its process and very theoretical in its process with its connection to Gemini, right? So Gemini would be the process of gathering information and learning, and then Virgo will say, well, let's organize it and put it in a structure supported with Saturn, right? So Saturn comes in and says, well, we need structure, and Virgo says, well, let me organize it in a way that really allows for that efficiency and clarity to exist, right? So we've got North Node in Gemini. We've got Mercury ruling the North Node. We've got the resolution of the North Node when Venus squares the nodes, being Mercury. And then we have all of the energy that is associated with the Council sitting in Capricorn. And Capricorn is about emotion. So it's about emotion in motion, right? So emotion. And we learn through emotional maturity. We learn through experiencing things and investing time into something. So the message here in this, way that's been written is try with Venus and Virgo to do things that you've never done before or feel insecure about. And don't try to say, let's make it perfect because I need to be accepted in some way, but let me do it because the value is in the effort. Because the value in the effort allows you to have an emotional connection to the experience that then allows you to say, okay, well, here's where I can make a few adjustments. Here's what I don't know. Here's what I do know. And so we learn by doing, right? So we have these guidelines set up by Capricorn. But when we emotionally experience and go through it, we develop wisdom. And so Venus and Virgo reflects the process of stepping outside of the intellectual feeling of insecurity around failure, or I'm not good enough, or I've just started, or any form of excuse that you could give yourself, and say, I'm going to stop giving myself all the excuses in the world. I'm going to try something. And I'm not measuring it by how well I do it, but I'm measuring it by how much I learn from just experiencing it. And eventually, over a period of time, letting your prefrontal cortex and your limbic system create neurological pathways in your brain to give the feeling of the experience, and the experience assimilating to your nervous system, the nervous system saying, hey, I've done this before, I know what to expect. And by doing this, we step into something that gives us confidence to believe in ourselves. Okay? All right. Peeps, have an amazing day. I hope you enjoyed this material. If you did, you can let us know in the comments below. I love that. I love to see how everybody's seeing the value in this. Add or share something that you want to. Make sure that you share it with people. And lastly, if you want to join our Patreon community, there's a link in the description. All right, guys, take care. Bye.